Good morning. This is Perry Freeman. After 34 years in law enforcement, 2 different agencies, I started this channel doing training, kind of a mini academy, hoping to help recruit cops, because we need cops. Well, that was before all this stuff hit the fan. I had done a number of videos, and then the George Floyd incident happened in Minneapolis, which was tragic, and this whole chain of events has come about. So now we've got a new one a few days ago in Atlanta where this Mr. Brooks was shot and killed, and 2 cops have been charged there. We've had numerous cops attacked and injured. There's some horrific photos on the internet of cops that have been beat. I know some have been killed. I don't have that number right now. But I want to talk about this defund the police thing. But thank God there's a new movement that I started hearing yesterday. Defend the police. Thank God some people have woke up and realized you can't do away with the police. We've talked about retraining, learning how to de-escalate, all those kind of things. But I specifically want to talk about what they've called the chokehold. Last night I started to watch Joe Rogan's podcast, and he had Jocko Willink, I think is his name, Jocko, the ex-Navy SEAL. They both are huge influencers on the internet. They both have great podcasts, especially Jocko. I mean, the guy's been there, done that, trained a lot of people. I watched maybe 15 minutes of that, probably 3-hour interview, and I had to turn it off because I got a little upset because they're saying the same things I've been saying in some of my videos. First of all, about recruiting cops, how hard it is to recruit. Of course, now, with all this going on, it's even more difficult to recruit good, solid, level-headed people to become cops. Dan Bongino, another big influencer and has a big following. Same thing with him. It kind of gets me because I post something and then I see Dan Bongino on a major TV network, and there he is saying almost word for word things that I've said. Point being, I know I'm on the right track, and I know I'm not the only one who thinks this way. So I know that Jocko and Dan Bongino have been there and done this kind of stuff, and they know what they're talking about. Whoever is going to be on this committee or this forum, whatever you want to call it, that's going to rethink how police are trained and this defunding issue or refunding, whatever they're calling it. I hope they have somebody like Dan or Jocko on that board, or at least listen to what they're saying. I'm going to make this one very short. I want to address the chokehold. First of all, anybody that's properly trained has never been trained in the chokehold. It's a carotid artery hold that cuts the blood off to the brain, and people go limp, pass out. You simply cuff them, and when they come to in 30 seconds or so, they're cuffed and they're under control. It's not a choke hold. If applied inappropriately, yes, it could choke somebody. Still, if they're released, once they go out, they'll come to in almost all cases, and they'll be fine in 30 seconds to a minute and wonder what the heck happened to them. How'd I get these cuffs on me? I've used it, but it's not a chokehold. Carotid artery hold. And let me just point out that I hope they get some people on this board that's going to retrain all of these cops. 800,000 cops in this country. We're going to have to retrain them. That's fine. I've said that in the past. Before any of this came about, I was talking about this. And I've talked about the escalation of force. And even before all this stuff happened, I was talking about cops need to know how to de-escalate when a situation is underhand. And then after the Floyd incident, it's water under the bridge, other than now we've got to go through the trials and all that. Now, let me just talk about this Brooks situation that happened in Atlanta, where unfortunately Mr. Brooks was shot and killed. First of all, in both situations, they resisted, and cops they escalate their use of force, which is a problem. When you're fighting for your life, you have to use whatever measures are available. The taser is nice, but I've seen people just get ticked off after being tased and they became stronger and madder. So it's not the perfect tool. Like Jocko said last night, okay, if we can't use the chokehold or the carotid hold and you're fighting for your life, what's next? A nightstick? You bang somebody in the head 6-8 times, I think is what he said. So what you've caused brain damage then, probably, if you beat them to the point that they're going to be able to be cuffed. So I would just want the country to wake up and realize it's not a chokehold. It's obviously not been trained properly. It needs to be redone. We need to do just a whole lot more training with our cops. Jocko pointed this out, that cops only spend, I don't know how many hours he said a year training in defensive tactics. In the Navy SEALs, I guess they trained 1/5 of their time was involved in training. Well, that would be impossible to do with 800,000 cops who have to go to work every day. And many of them work in 12-hour shifts, etc., risking their lives every day. But Dan Bongino and Jocko, they get it. They understand what a cop's up against. They've been there. I get it. I've been there. I'm just going to finish this by saying, if those two cops in Atlanta a few nights ago had been trained properly, watching that film, one of those cops easily could have put a carotid hold on Mr. Brooks when they had him on the ground. When he had them on the ground, I should say. Obviously, he was a very strong individual. I'm not going to go into the actual gunshot part. Leave that for the courts to decide. But they could have incapacitated Mr. Brooks right there when they had him on the ground. Takes like 8 seconds. Not 8 minutes or 9 minutes like in Minneapolis. It takes about 8 seconds. And he would have gone limp, cuffed. When he woke up in 30 seconds, he'd have been fine. And he'd be alive today. So we better rethink what we're telling our cops to do, or there's going to be a lot of cops getting hurt. And I don't know what's going to happen with the defendants, with the suspects, whatever we want to call them at this point. I'm just saying Mr. Brooks could be alive if those two cops had used different techniques. I'm sure they were afraid to do that, even if they had it in the back of their mind after what happened with Mr. Floyd and all the riots and everything going on and defund the police and ban the chokehold and all that. I'm sure if they even knew that technique, they were afraid to use it. And unfortunately, Mr. Brooks gets shot. He's dead. So I'm just saying, I saw some signs, some small protests with the opposite of what we've been hearing. They're saying, defend the police. Please, that's what we need to do. We need to defend the police. We can't get rid of the cops. I've talked about that over and over. Common sense. Defend the police. We've got to retrain them. They've got to learn how to de-escalate. They've got to know how to handle people when it's life and death struggle. And those happen every day in law enforcement. Cops are put in that situation every day. They have to know what to do, so they're not going to get charged criminally or sued or whatever. And we're not killing anybody in the process. So you need to get the right people involved, not a bunch of politicians or businessmen or activists or whatever. You need some people that have been there and done that. And I don't mean a bunch of chiefs that have been in administrative offices for 20 years. I'm talking about cops that have been on the street in the last 20 or 25 years and know what's going on out there. It's tough. You risk your life every day. And when it hits the fan, you do what you can. That's a nice little saying. When it hits the fan, you do what you can. Anyway, wake up, folks. We need cops. We need to train them differently. We need to make sure they're not killing unnecessary individuals. And we need to just get the right people to put this training, national training. And I called for national training way back before this happened. Anyway, that's about all I've got today. This is an ending. It's going to be a long summer. Don't know what else to say. Proper training. 8 seconds, you can put somebody down without seriously hurting them. You don't have to pull out a gun. Taser's nice, like I said, but wow, I've seen it backfire on us too. So, again, this is Cop Facts. Give me a like if you understand what I'm talking about. Pray for our cops, pray for our country. It's a mess. I've been around it all my life, and I've never seen anything like what's happening today. Be safe. Talk to you again.